everybody. Welcome to our Russian language detective series. This is our continuing series of adding to our English to Russian reference guide as a resource tool for you. It'll turn into not only like a dictionary, but it'll evolve into like phrase list as well as a thesaurus, so you can see how the alternate words and sayings can be used in different circumstances. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our first phrase, a lot of. You want to say a lot of? So we'll see how we can do that and transfer that into how the context would be if you were to say it in Russian. All right, so let's go to our English to Russian reference guide. And we're going to add in the English section, this very left section here, a lot of. So let's go ahead and add that in alphabetical order. And a lot of. We know what that is in English, so now we're going to try to determine what that's equivalent to in Russian. We are going to go to our RU Translate app. We're going to speak into this microphone here the English words a lot of, and then down here we're going to see what appears for the translation. A lot of. It did pick up the English words a lot of, and below here in the Russian section it does show the corresponding Russian word that's equivalent to a lot of. At this point we're going to go to these double arrows. We're going to bring the Russian word to the top. There's a speaker button to the right here. It's in this area here. It's hidden right now, but it is there. So click on that to see what it sounds like in Russian.
Много.
It sounds like they're saying mnogo. With that being the case, what we'll do now is we'll go back to our English-Russian reference guide, and we'll put in that middle column the phonic sound of what that Russian word sounds like. Me, no, ga. Okay, so we have that there. What we want to do now is we want to confirm that we're actually going to speak the word properly, mnogo. So with that being the case, we're going to go to this RU Translate app, and I'm going to press this microphone button here, and I'm going to make an attempt at pronouncing that Russian word mnogo and see if it recognizes that word in this app. Mnogo. So we do see that it does recognize the word I just spoke. It recognizes mnogo here. It translates it properly into the English here. So that's a double check there. And so we can rest assured that that's how you pronounce that word in the Russian language. Now, a lot of has three words here, but mnogo is one word in the Russian language. So a lot of is just a one-word phrase in the Russian language, as we see there. We want to take this Russian word and then go to, I just wanted to say, just refresh everybody's memory that if you don't have these tools here that you see on the screen, you can go back to one of our prior videos called the Russian Language Toolkit, and it'll give you instructions on how to use those applications and websites and URLs properly to continue this purpose of what we're doing here today. All right, so we're going to start with M and then N, which looks like our English letter H, O. Type that in. and then ge, which has the sound like give, goat, but it does have a different look to it. It resembles our small English lowercase r. And then we have O again. All right, so what we're going to do in this Russian language keyboard is copy that word, mnogo, and then we're going to paste it onto our English to Russian reference guide. So in this left column, we have a lot of the phonic sound alike mnogo here, and then we have the actual spelling of that Russian word in the Russian language. Okay, that's wonderful. That's our first phrase of the day. Let's move on to our second phrase.
Detective Carl speaking. Thank you, Dilla. I'll take the call in the security booth down the hall. Sorry for the interruption, people. Please stick around. This is an important call that just can't wait. I'll be back in just a moment or two, so please just hang tight. Hello, Natasha. This is Detective Carl. What did you find out?
Yes, Detective Carl. I wanted to make sure that your viewers are aware that they can click on the buttons below your video to like, share, and subscribe to this important channel.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sure they are aware as we speak. I do appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to inform us of this invaluable information. Thank you, Natasha.
Goodbye, Detective.
Our second phrase, we'll use the phrase a note, like you're passing a note to somebody, and we'll see how that equates to in the Russian language. So first of all, let us go to our English-Russian reference guide, and let's put an alphabetical order in this left column here, a note. Once we're done with that for the time being, we'll now go to our Russian language translate app here, the RU app. There is a speaker button right here, and I'm going to pronounce the English word a note in this section below here. The equivalent should appear in the Russian section. So let me see how that works. We'll try that right now. A note. And what we want to do now is bring the Russian word to the top. So we're going to click on this double arrow to switch these two. In this area here to the right, it's hidden right now, but there's a speaker there. I'm going to click on that to see what this word sounds like in Russian.
Заметка.
It sounds like they're saying zametka. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to our English to Russian reference guide, and we'll place that in the sound alike for the phonic. So it sounds like they're trying to say zametka, and so we'll go ahead and type that in here. For this phonic translation here, zametka, you'll see that I have put an apostrophe there between the M and the Y. That is because it's a quick sounding transition, and so it's just easier for me to remember that. Zametka. The true test will be is when I speak this into the RU Translate app, whether or not it will pick up that word or not. All right, so on the RU Translate app, let me erase what's on there now. I'm going to speak Zametka into the Russian translation app and see if it will recognize what I'm saying in the Russian language. Zametka. it did come up with the note instead of a note, but this word here, zamitka, can be used for both. And we may actually want to put this the note in the phrase section when it comes to the T section of our English Russian reference guide. But it'll be a while before we get to the T's, but we'll add it to the A's for right now for a note. All right, so with that being said, what we can do is now take this Russian word here and we're going to type it into a Russian keyboard. So we have Z, and the letter Z looks like our number 3 in the English language, but it has the sound of Z, like zebra. And then we have A, M, yeah, T, Ka, and A. So we're copy that word from the Russian keyboard, and we're going to paste it onto our English to Russian reference guide and have it available for any time we need that. So there is our second word for the translation of a note into Russian.
Detective Carl speaking.
Hello, Detective. This is your secretary, Della. I have your Russian informant, Natasha, on the line.
Is that so, Della? Put her on hold. I'll take her call in the security booth down the hall. Sorry, people. Once again, this is one of our delays that come up. I'll try to make it short. Just hang tight if you would. I'll be back shortly, I'm sure. Hello, Natasha. This is Detective Carl. Any new discoveries?
Yes, Detective Carl, I wanted to inform your viewers that below your video, they can click on the Views description bar. Once there, if this channel is helpful to them and they wish to offer their support, they can also click on the blue Donations link.
Oh, yes. I'll be sure to relay this information to them. I do appreciate all your efforts in bringing this to light. What would otherwise be left undiscovered for sure. Keep up the good work, Natasha. I'll look forward to our next conversation sometime soon, I'm sure.
Goodbye, Detective.
All right, so we'll move on to our third phrase, a pity. You might say, oh, it's a pity that this happened to such and such. So we're going to look at a pity and see how that translates into the Russian language. So first of all, we'll go ahead and go to our English to Russian reference guide, and we'll put a pity in the left column in this English section in the alphabetical order. A pity. We have that completed. Now we want to move on to the RU Translate app. I'm going to click on this microphone and speak the word a pity, and then we'll see what appears in the Russian section below. A pity. Okay, so we see that it does recognize the English phrase and it shows the conversion into Russian. At this point, we're going to bring the Russian word to the top by clicking on these double arrows. And now there is a speaker right here. It's hidden right now, but it is there. And then we're going to click on that to see what it sounds like in the Russian language.
Жалость.
It sounds like they're saying жалость. What we'll do is we'll go down to here into our English to Russian reference guide, midsection. This is for the phonic of that, жалость. I think in the past, on some of my previous videos, the sounding of ja, we don't have an equivalent. So what I do is I just directly place the J letter into this so I can recognize it more readily. So in order to do that, we need to go to our Russian keyboard, click on this J letter, and I'm going to copy and paste that from there back into this English to Russian reference guide. So we got the first letter, J. Since we have that letter, we'll go ahead and go back, add the rest of it. So we got the ja, and so we're going to finish this up with the English sound-alike for that Russian phrase. Jalost. All right, now before we go any further, we're going to come back to this RU Translate app to make sure that we're going to be able to pronounce it properly and see if the application will recognize this Russian word when we attempt to speak the Russian word of Jalost. All right, here we go. Jalost. So we had some great luck there. We have a double confirmation. It recognizes the Russian word that it spoke, and it also converted it properly into what the English equivalent is. All right, so we'll move over to our English to Russian reference guide and use our Russian keyboard to spell out that word and insert it into this very right column in the Russian section. All right, we already have the zhe there. Now we're going to add the rest of it. If you look at this, RU Translate, we're going to type in the words from here over into the Russian language keyboard. So we already have the zhe. We're going to add the a. We're going to add the L, which doesn't look like an L, but that's what an L is in the Russian language. And we've got an O. We got a C. C is always pronounced as se. It's never a k sound in the Russian language. So if you can remember that, it'll help you a little further along whenever you come across that letter in your interpretations or in future interpretations. And then we have te, and then b. This lowercase letter b is just a soft sound. It's not really a B sound. It's designated to make sure that this letter before it, the te, is quieter than a normal sounding of the letter te. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to copy and paste this Russian word into the Russian section of our English to Russian reference guide. So let's do that. It's in the third column over. And there you have it, Jalost. All right, so you can see that this is continuing to expand, and we're working on the A's now, but it's gonna get quite lengthy over time as you keep adding these phrases. Will help personalize you and be familiar with Russian phrases, and you can use different words once your thesaurus builds up in this as well. We do appreciate you coming on board for this one individual video series, and hope you'll continue to watch our future ones as they come about. It's been great having you with us. So long for now.